is Oshodi, one of the areas in Lagos State.
And it's good.
But what are the consequences of this? Hello there, and welcome to this week's edition of Super Eye. I am Adinke Uweye, your host, always on the program. It's really beautiful to have you join me today. Well, today we want to look at a particular issue. Of course, this concerns everybody in the society, because without the development of this particular aspect, then there is no nation. Like they say, children are the future of future leader of a country or any other country. You know, as future leaders, there is need for us to inculcate the right values in our children and for us to also protect their rights. But the question arises, how many Nigerians are aware? And if we are aware, how many of us are conversant with these very rights? And in knowing some of this right, we do in accordance to the rights of the children. Of course, tomorrow, Nigeria will join others in the world to celebrate Children's Day. And also looking forward, May 29 is Nigeria's Democracy Day. So today on Super Eye, we want to look at the Nigerian child. How has the Nigerian child benefited from democracy? We have been practicing democracy, of course, since 1999 during former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Up until now, are the Nigerian children safe? Are their rights being upheld enough? These are the things that we'll be looking at today on Super Eye. So on that note, I say another warm welcome to Super Eye. So now, I have my guest in the house. I have Barrister Tunde Kolawole to join me in the discussion on the rights of the Nigerian child. You're welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Nick. Thanks for having me. And I say good afternoon to all the people listening to us.
It's always a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you.
Now, this Democracy Day is just few days to now. We're looking at Tuesday. Of course, we are aware that the federal government has also declared a public holiday for us to mark Democracy Day. Now, the Nigerian child, the rights of the Nigerian child under this democracy that we are practicing, can we really say that they have been impact on the Nigerian child?
Well, democracy, when you compare it to military rule, you will find out that like Chief Obafemi said, he said civil rights, usually under the military, are not totally abjured. They are mostly in abeyance. The implication is that it is not that the military doesn't observe fundamental human rights at all, but most times fundamental rights under the military are usually not allowed or enjoyed or entertained to the fullest maximum. The implication is that under the military, just like adults, the rights of the child under the military is mostly in abeyance. But when you look at democracy, there may be challenges here and there, but you can as well say that under a democratic dispensation, that the Nigerian child has fared better when you compare with their rights under the military rule. And by the time we go into this program, when we look at all the developments that have taken place since 1999, you and I will be able to compare notes whether the Nigerian child has fared better under this democracy, under the military rule.
But for you, your submission, you think the Nigerian child has fared
in my
well?
humble opinion, I think the Nigerian child has fared better under this democracy.
In what
when you
area?
compare them Well, rights can be looked at from 2-3 perspectives. There are those rights that are prescribed by the United Nations. In fact, there's a charter on the rights of the Nigerian child, on the rights of children all over the world, which the United Nations try to guarantee and ensure that all nations practices. Again, you also have certain rights that are prescribed by the Nigerian Constitution, for example, which is usually described or called the fundamental rights. All these fundamental rights, just as is applied to adults, it equally applies to the Nigerian child.
Exactly.
Furthermore, when you also look at the Child Rights Act and then the Child Rights Law, the Child Rights Act is the one that has been promulgated by the National Assembly, exactly, which is supposed to cover those things that could be said to be on the exclusive legislative list. That is the Federal Capital, Abuja, and some of those other federal territory that is governed by the federal law. And of course, we have the Child Rights Law, which is a domestication of the Child Rights Act, the one promulgated by the National Assembly, which all the states of the Federation are supposed to domesticate. And I think Lagos State has done that. They did that as far as 2011. A number of other states have also domesticated the Child Rights Act. When you look at all those domestications and then the rights are prescribed under those laws, it has tended to deepen the enjoyment of rights by the Nigerian child. Corollary to this is law against domestic violence, law against street trading, and then some of these under ancillary law, which, for example, the Lagos State legislator have been very, very proactive in terms of promulgating.
So for
me, and most fundamentally, when you look at the Child Rights Act, it has said that, especially the one promulgated by Lagos State, it said that every child will have a right to free universal basic education.
Yes.
And I think that is a right up to, education up to the middle school level, that is to junior secondary school. That is to say, if you go to school in Lagos State and
comparison to the military era.
Exactly, compared to the military era.
So you think that the Nigerian child
I should think so. That they have fared better. And more importantly too, those of us who are applying our trade in the justice sector, we have found out that there are a lot of cases now concerning the Nigerian child, either from the perspective abuses, and then the government trying to enforce the law that it has made, or even children going to court, approaching the court to say, look, my right as a child has been abridged. I want you to really enforce this right on my behalf.
All right, Barrister, I'll come back to you.
All right.
However, yes, back to my viewers. The Nigerian child is protected under the Child's Rights Act and the Constitution of the federal government, like my guest was talking about. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. These laws are put in place to ensure that a child is treated properly and with dignity. But what are these rights, the rights of the Nigerian children? How many of us are aware of them? So I'll quickly say one or two among these rights so that some of us will get ourselves acquainted with the basic rights of the Nigerian child. Since tomorrow, we'll be celebrating the children all over the world, and Nigeria isn't going to be an exception in this commemoration of Children's Day. So now, a part of the rights, really, the number one is the right to survival and development, which means that, it is the right of any child, it is the right of the Nigerian child to, survive, and that we have to ensure that this right is protected, which also includes feeding and all of feeding, clothing, and what have you. Then the right to name, of course, if a child is being given birth to, you should know that it is the right of the child to have a name. And that is why every individual has a name. There must be a form of identification for that child. So it is the right of the Nigerian child to have a name. And then, of course, you talk about the right to freedom of association and peaceful assembly. Every child, every Nigerian child is entitled to free association and peaceful assembly. Now, this right is, however, subject to guidance from parents. And this is why they are children. Now, it is also a clarion call on parents who just abandon their children. No matter the kind of work that we do, we must always create time for our children. It is very important because they are the future leaders. Now, if we don't inculcate the right values in our children, there is every tendency that they are going to turn out to be something that we might not be happy about. Then the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. A child is entitled to his own thoughts, conscience, and religion. But this is also subject to guidance from parents. Authorities must also respect the exercise of this legal right to direct by the parents. And now another is a right to private life and family. There must be no interference whatsoever with the privacy of a child, telephone correspondence, and all of that. Yes, I know that in the international world, maybe some of these rights are, for me, sometimes I feel that the rights are just too much in the international community. Now, because we are Africans and in Nigeria, we must know that we have to draw the line, and that is where discipline always comes in. Oh, Barrister, what do you think about that? In Africa, we know that when a child does something that is bad, he or she must be scolded. But how do we draw the line between correction and punishment of a child?
Well, let me say this, that we must correct one erroneous impression very, very quickly. You will remember that I made a reference to the United Nations, that is has a charter on on children's rights. These things are not limited to either European, American, Canadian, Indian societies alone. It covers Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world is inclusive. So whatever is practiced in America, vis-a-vis, or whatever rights a child is enjoyed in America, in Canada, abroad, and all that, it's also applicable in here.
Okay.
It's applicable. It's just that most times, maybe because of our level of development, people don't take time or have the resources to really be able to go to the appropriate authorities to really enforce this right. With regards to discipline of the child, it is true there is a penchant in this part of the world either to apply corporal punishment or things like caning, flogging against the child and all that. Let me also say that our law seriously frowns at it in the sense that, yes, you have a right to discipline your child, but in the process of disciplining your child, you must know that you are not allowed to use a sledgehammer to kill a mosquito. Okay. We see this more with apprentices. We also see this more with parents from very poor home in which they think that when you spare the rod, you are likely to spoil the child. In applying the rod, you are not expected to
apply with discretion.
Grievous bodily harm. And in fact, the law totally frowns at corporal punishment, like I have said. It also frowns at things like flogging and all that, applying the cane to the child's what have you. Simply because that may be tantamount to inflicting grievous, most times, on the child. We have seen cases in which people would even take iron and use it to inflict grievous bodily harm on children. Some will pour water on the child and also use the cane to inflict all sorts of lacerations on the back of the child and all that. The law seriously frowns at this. If you're going to discipline the child, it must be done with minimum force and with caution, because once it tends to inflict, like I said, grievous harm or too much punishment or infraction on the child and all that, then you are likely to be liable, even if you are the parent, father or the mother of such a child.
So which means correction is when you use the rod with caution or without inflicting grievous injury or pains on the child?
What the law prescribes is mostly a kind of to punish a child. What the law expects is words of advices, words of caution, sometimes little denial of certain things, and not corporal punishment. not using the rod or the cane on the child, because most time when we tend to apply the cane or corporal punishment on the child and all that, it's usually very difficult to know the limits, because most times those things are born out of anger.
Yeah.
You see, they're influenced by anger, and not many people are able to control their anger, and that is the reason the law cautions parents, cautions guardian, cautions custodians of children to be very wary of really applying the rod when they try to discipline the child.
All right, Barrister, I understand the position of the law, what the law is saying as regards punishment and correction. But then, wouldn't you think that that will be right when you apply that in schools? Because I'm trying to put myself in a position of my viewer, a parent at home, a Nigerian parent, you know, a Yoruba woman, basically. You know, it is just normal to them to use cane for their children. So how do you tell them to take caution?
They do it not because it is permitted by law. You know, we have mentioned a few things here. We say all the fundamental rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. The child is also entitled to those rights. That's right to dignity of the person. By the time you start flogging a child, you are violating the dignity of that child.
Okay.
By the time you put a child in shackles, we have seen people who they chain their children to chairs, to tables, to some grids in their respective zones and all that. You are violating the right of movement of that kind of a child and all that. So that is why I'm saying that using the cane may be a widespread practice among parents, among guardians, among custodians of children. It does not mean that the law allows it. Once the attention of the law is drawn to such applications and all that, the parents or the guardian or the custodian of such a child may be liable for sanctions in the appropriate court of law, even within the appropriate authorities.
Okay, I would want to know, and I'm very sure that many of my viewers will be interested. You know, we are living in an environment where a lot of people are not or are unaware of their rights. Now, in trying to enlighten the public about the rights of the children, in a situation where a parent is maltreating a child, how do they go about reporting such cases?
There are a number of steps that could be taken when the right of a child is being violated.
Number one.
The child itself can, if he's conscious enough of the abuse of his or her right, can walk to the nearby police stations or authorities, civil defense, Lagos Neighborhood Watch, or even the community leaders to say that I'm undergoing this kind of punishment. And then such another or such institution that such a child reports so can take it up from there. We have seen instances in which some children under the age of 18 will walk to the nearby police station and say, look, my child is being abused by my custodian, by my guardian, by my uncle, or by even my father or my mother and other. And the law is expected to act immediately on the complaint of such a child. In some other instances, if the child is not too conscious enough and other, people in the particular neighborhood, associates, people living within the same area and all that, with such a child, if they see that a child is being maltreated within a particular environment and other, it is incumbent on people within that environment to lay a complaint to the appropriate authorities. It could be to the police station, it could be to the welfare department, Ministry of Social Welfare and what have you. It could even be to a nearby family court within the neighborhood. And then appropriate steps are likely to be taken in that kind of circumstances. So, the other one is that if it's brought to the notice of the police, of course they can come around and effect arrest of such a person abusing the right of the child. Furthermore, people who own the property where a child is being abused are liable if at the end of the day such abuses are brought to the notice of the authorities.
Thank you.
And all that.
Going there.
Yeah, because if your facilities, your house, your business environment,
you need to be conscious of the environment.
I mean, it's being used to abuse the right of a child and all that. And you who own such a property or who own such facilities and all that.
So
for example, underage labor. A child below certain age is not expected to carry out certain labor within certain time. And then you have a factory in which maybe the manager of the factory is employing underage people to come and work in an hazardous environment and that kind of a thing. And you own such a facility, you turn a blind eye.
So you're liable.
Such a thing and all that to you. You might be liable. I also give you a particular insight. Look at the law against trafficking in person and whatever. I've seen an instance in a particular place in Lagos in which somebody who owns an hotel facility will go to certain sections of the country and other and recruit underage girls and other and bring them to the hotel where those children have been asked to do prostitutions and whatever. And certain persons took steps to go and report to NAPTIP, that is the National Agency for Trafficking in Person and whatever. And as of today, an order has been given by a court of competent jurisdiction that hotel should be shut down and then the facilities taken over, because that is what the law prescribes and all that. So you own such facilities, you must be mindful that if your facilities are being used to abuse the right of the child and all that, there could be enormous consequences in terms of forfeiture if of such facilities to government or the appropriate authorities.
Quite interesting.
The government can confiscate such properties.
Quite interesting. But after confiscating the property, what then happens to the individual who...
Oh, of course, they will be prosecuted. There are a series of sanctions under the law, which ranges from fines to imprisonment, and then, like I said, confiscation of such property that are being used to abuse the right of the child. Is
there any aspect that attracts a life imprisonment? Maybe the situation whereby the child dies? Usually
that is in the area of defilement of children. We have seen instances today in which children below the age of 18 are experiencing sexual abuses. At the national level, there is a law against defilement and rape, which carries a life imprisonment. So the courts could apply the maximum punishment if somebody is brought to court and then is convicted accordingly. Such things like defilement could or rape of a child under the age of 18 attract a life imprisonment in Nigeria.
Well, I think that's encouraging. That's really good. I'm about asking, really, as a legal practitioner, what do you consider as the major obstacle, really, of facing the Nigerian child?
There are a whole lot of them. I must say that the first one is poverty. We have found out that most children that are being abused today, most of them all over the country and other are victims of poverty. Their children, their parents may be indigent, and when the parents are indigent, most times they could farm out their children to relations, to uncles and cousins and other, where such children are being forced to undergo labors that ordinarily they should not be undergoing at their age. You also find that the guardian of such children and all that make them to do street trading, street hawking, and what have you. We have also seen instances in which these kind of children are being sexually abused by their guardians and all that. Even parents, the father of some of these children, especially when the mother is no longer there, when the marriage has broken down, for one reason or the other, you find out that the father sometimes took advantage of the absence of the mother to start having sexual engagement or defiling these children. So, most cases, to the best of my knowledge that have been reported, most children who have been exposed to some of these abuses are mostly children coming from very, very poor background. The other area is cultural. Cultural in several respects. You have culture in terms of the African culture. You also have those cultural things that has to do with religion. Take, for example, in the northern part of the country where Islamic religion is predominant. We have had instances in which children who are under the age of 18 are married to people or men who are as old as their father or even as their grandfather and what have you. A child under the age of 18.
Hello.
Okay, I have a call. Hello, you're welcome to Super I.
Yeah.
Chinedu, you're welcome. Let's have your contribution. Sorry?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please, clearly.
Okay, so I want to ask Barrister a question.
Okay. Yeah.
I heard last week that General Jan, former governor of Plateau State, has been granted bail for 100 million naira.
Yeah.
Then another thing, the former governor of Kano State granted bail 95 million naira. And when I hear all these things, I became confused. So I want to the barrister to really clarify me. Is it that they have been, after the investigation, that they discovered that they committed the crime, that's why they granted the bail with such amount of money, or granting them bail to continue investigation? I need more clarification. I don't really understand why such a thing is happening. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let me say there are two different types of bail. There's what you call the administrative bail. Before the security people take you to court, the EFCC, the police, and all that may grant you bail and ask somebody to come to their station to sign a bond to produce you whenever and at whatever place they so need you. That one is called administrative bail. That is before you are taken to court. Then when you are taken to court, the court also grants you bail, because in Nigeria, most a man who is arraigned for a criminal offense or charged to court for violating any law and order is presumed under our law to be innocent until it is convicted. And so the court most times tends to grant bail to such a person, except in very exceptional circumstances like homicide, like murder, like the one we have talked about, like rape cases, which carry very severe punishment, because the court may be fearing or anticipating that because of the severity of the punishment, if this kind of a person is granted bail, the possibility that he's going to run away will not come back to answer to his crime is there. So the court hardly wants to grant bail to people who have committed capital crime offenses, or offenses that carries life imprisonment. With specific regard to the question that we have asked, the 100 million and what have you and all that, it's a kind of bond that the surety, the person who stands for you in court, who stands as a surety for you in court, that if you run away or you refuse to turn up to come back to court to answer to the charges or to the information that has been filed against you, your surety would pay to the government the 100 million or the 50 million bond that the court has said the bail, the surety will provide if the person does not come back to answer to the charges. So all those money that you hear, big sums of money that we have been talked about and other, will only be paid if the person that is charged to court or that information has been filed against in the High Court does not come back to answer for his crime. If he tries to run away, then the person that has used surety for him is likely to forfeit that kind of money to government.
What now happens to the accused?
Where the law is that they will still continue to search for him until they find him. In addition to forfeiture, you can also be tried for crimes like trying to pervert the course of justice and all that you knowingly allow the person to run away so that you will not come back to answer. You can also be jailed in addition to forfeiting that kind of
now, in relation to a topic of discussion,
to the authority.
I'm perturbed about the increase in mental and physical abuse of children. Of recent, we have seen fathers having kind of knowledge of their daughters, even a stepfather with a stepdaughter, and without the knowledge of the mothers. What do you see to this, and what does the law say about such an act?
Well, like I said, when you all look at most of those cases that we have seen in court and all that, like I said, it's usually coming from poor homes and also broken homes. When the father and the mother have separated, and then no mother or no father to keep an eye on each other, then you find out that the parents may begin to have carnal knowledge of the father, for example, may begin to have carnal knowledge of or the daughter. The law is very, very straightforward. It doesn't mean because you are the father, the law is going to be more, the law is going to be lenient with you. It will still carry the same maximum punishment of life imprisonment for having carnal knowledge of a child that is under the age of 18. In most of these jurisdictions all over the country today, it's life imprisonment when you engage in carnal knowledge of on an underage a child. Or you engage in rape of even an adult who is above the age of 18.
Okay, well, from all that you've said, I'm about to ask him that who were those that you consider to be the victim in most cases of child abuse, judging from the point of the poor, the rich, and the middle class. And what would be your advice to this particular group of people?
Yeah, let me say that child abuse comes in various forms. Some of the forms in which it comes, we have tried to highlight it today. We have talked about people having carnal knowledge of children. We have talked about defilement and all that, even by
child labor.
No, you also have things like child labor. You have things like some parents not providing maintenance. A father will give birth to a child. He doesn't really have the means to provide for such children and all that. And so the children will be sent out to go and do that petty, to go and start hawking things, selling granules and what have you. Or they are even sent to factories, a work environment to go and begin to do work that the adults ordinarily should be doing and not children. Of course, too, there's also very rampant now kidnapping and the trafficking of children.
Yes.
So they come in different forms, and we have also mentioned cases of corporal punishment and inflicting of grievous bodily harm on all these children and all that, which, like I have tried to say, that most times you see these abuses coming more from the poor homes in the society. I would want to think that the economic situation of the country of recent times has really aggravated some of these situations, such that when parents are unable to provide for their children, they tend to take the frustrations on some of these children, either by unnecessarily bullying them, either by unnecessarily flogging them, or either by even sending them to relations for upkeep, which they themselves are unable to do. And when they are sent to some of these relations themselves may not even have the means to really cater for these children. The situation is that each time we as adults see some of these abuses going on in our environments and other, we should endeavor to bring it to the attention of the authorities. And like I said, it could be the welfare department, it could be the police station, it could even be the nearest family court that you have within your environment. But it does not mean that children from the upper class or from the middle class don't face some of these challenges. They do, exactly, they do face them. It is just that to find out that most times the parents, the people from the upper class who engage in some of these abuses and other, have a way of covering their tracks, either in terms of bribing these children not to make report to the authorities, or when reports are made to the authorities, like the police and other, they have a way of bribing their way out of some of these situations that these rich parents may find themselves. So,
well, Barrister, quickly, I want to ask this. Yes. This is Africa, this is Nigeria. Okay. We are aware of how our culture sometimes does not, I don't know, maybe I call it culture, but I think most Nigerian parents are not so confident to the extent of teaching their children some of these things. The need for them to be confident in themselves, such that when adults, well, basically the men or even the women too, because I've heard cases of house girls, you know, the house assistants or housemaid, as you want to call it, they in most cases abuse the male children, and on the part of the girl child too, the male adults, and the vice versa. Parents, I think to an extent, some parents can be blamed for this because they do not teach their children to be confident enough to report such cases to them. What do you have to say in this regard?
Yes, there is a lot of sense in what you are talking about. When you look at the sociology of the kind of crimes that we are looking at today, you find out that various people in the interface have responsibilities towards ensuring that some of these abuses don't take place. First and foremost, the responsibilities lies on the parent to really be able to educate their children on what they should take from the home and the environment, from the school, and what they should not take. But most times you find out the parents are too busy to pay attention to the education of their children and what as regards the kind of treatment that they should subject themselves to and what they should not subject themselves to, and then make a report most of the time.
What about the schools? Now, even if we look at it that parents are failing in their responsibility to be able to teach their children what to reject and what to accept, what is the role of the school in moral education?
Oh, a lot of role. It's a relay thing. That was why I was talking about an interface. If, for example, a child reports in school in the morning and you find bruises all over the body of the child and all that, it is incumbent on the class teacher or the teachers of such a child to make inquiry regarding how the bruises on the child has come about. And if it is found that it is the parent or a relation or a guardian that has inflicted such bruises on such a child, it is incumbent on the school, on the teacher, on the principal, or whoever is the proprietor of such a school to invite such a parent to make initial inquiry as regards why the child has been subjected to such an inhuman treatment. And from there, if it is found that they actually did it and all that, because sometimes some will say the child has been stealing meat from the pot of stew, eating more than ordinarily they should eat from the family food and
it's
all that.
Rights,
and then you start flogging such a child and all that. The school should now take the next step to report to the appropriate authority, like the police or the family unit in the police stations and all that, or even the social welfare department. In some of these places, there has been instances in which children have been taken away from their parents because the children have been seen not to have the capacity to either take care of these children the way and manner they should be properly taken care of, or they don't even have the emotional temperament to be able to manage the affairs of these children. They subject the children to abuses and other. And the government, especially under the child rights law that has been made by Lagos State, will not fold its hand and allow such a parent to keep such children when they really don't have the wherewithal, the emotional stability or temperament to be able to take proper care of these children. The government will take away such a child from such a child, either get them into adoption for some other people to adopt them, or even put them in some foster homes or child welfare homes and all that, for them to be properly taken care of.
Barrister, what do you consider to be the proactive measure, like prior to the happening of some of these abuses? What should be the measure to be taken by schools, religious bodies, pending when such children are even exposed to such abuses?
Yeah, you have said something that is very fundamental today. Fundamental in the sense that you talked about education, awareness. We must be very conscious. All these laws, they are in the statute books. The Child Rights Act, the United Nations Charter, and then the Lagos State Child Rights Law, and some of these other laws that has been made by the respective states of the Federation. But how many parents themselves are even aware of these children? Right. Are they literate enough to be able to read off some of these things and know the do's and don'ts as prescribed by law? Exactly. But you see, the bottom line is until they fall foul of this law, they never know the implication, because the law does not ignorance. You can't go to court and plead ignorance and say, look, I did it because I'm not aware it is against the law. You will be calling it's assumed, the law assumes that everybody knows this is so. The government ought to be making more efforts in really creating awareness regarding the rights of the child and the way and manner children should manage their children in the respective. You also have organizations like MAMSA. You also have the Social Welfare Department, as I said. You also have the Ministry of Women Affairs that is responsible for some of these things, the different ministries. But how many times do you see them engage in educational awareness and promotion activities? That they should, it is only on the Children's Day
that you see them all over the streets.
And after the parade and the salute and all that, that ends it. Whereas we ought to be more proactive.
Continuous.
It should be continuous.
All right, many thanks, Barrister. I'll come back to you. Right. Now, for the benefit of my viewers, I will take a short break now. However, after the break, you can start calling in. Let's have your contribution about the promotion of the Nigerian child's rights. But after the break, I'm going to take this report from the Senate, or what the Senate is asking or requesting from the president as regards promoting the Child's Rights and the Child Rights Act. All of these we'll discuss after this time. Join us again. This is Oshodi, one of the areas in Lagos State.
View, it's okay and it's good.
But what are the consequences of this?
The Senate recognizes the importance of developing the Nigerian child through the passage of legislation such as the Child's Rights Act 2003, which defines a new child protective system and allows opportunities for the participations of children in the matters that concerns their rights and welfare. The Senate notes that the 27th of May each year is observed as Children's Day in Nigeria. The Senate is aware of the significant role of the Nigerian child in the nation's development and the need to lay a good foundation for them. The Senate recognizes the importance of developing the Nigerian child through the passage of legislation such as the Child's Rights Act 2003, which defines a new child protective system and allows opportunities for the participations of children in the matters that concerns their rights and welfare.
The Child Rights Act provides for the welfare of the Nigerian child. But today, we find that the Nigerian child is still a basic target for all sorts of violence. There is violence in terms of they are the target of kidnapping in the society, as we have seen in the case of the Dapchi schoolgirls. On this day, we would call on a commitment to the implementation of these various acts that are supposed to protect the child, the Nigerian child, from these various forms of violence.
I want to appeal to well-meaning Nigerians to partner with their various governments, federal, state, local governments, and see how we can tighten the security apparatuses in most of the schools, and at the same time provide a conducive environment for our children.
I believe that our children, they deserve more, and we will start from this chamber itself. we have to assign every senator to take maybe a number of rice to an IDP camp and do what is needful.
Please let us work to see that Child Rights Act is passed in all our 36 states, because as we say, there's a lot of violence that we're seeing against our children. This is an area that we need to work very hard on. And lastly, as we said, is for us to continue to ensure the security of our country, because they are the most vulnerable in areas of security challenges. Let us live up to our own part of our responsibilities in ensuring that we make our children healthier, we make them we give them the best education so that they have a bright future.
Well, you have heard these senators of what they are saying in regards to the right of the Nigerian child. Quite a lot has been said, yes. Quite a lot has been said, but I'll come back to my guest now, Barrister. We heard the senators talking there, and part of what they've said is that the Nigerian child is still a target of kidnapping and what have you. And now, they've also charged the president to ensure the release of the last standing girl still in Boko Haram captivity. I'm talking about
the Dapchi and then
Dapchi girl,
and then Saibulea.
Exactly. So what do you think about this?
Well, it's really unfortunate that in the 21st century, and then with the kind of technology that is available now, more than 3 years after, we still have not been able to find the Dapchi girl. It's also unfortunate that somebody like Leah is still in captivity. If we knew where to find those who captured Leah, for example, to negotiate with them, and then we did the negotiation and then they released the other children, I don't see any reason why it should take this long for us to enter into another or further negotiation so that Leah could also be released to join our parents. But what we have continued to see is a kind of lethargy on the part of the government because I would want to say that the technologies are there now such that wherever those who are having these children are, we should by now be able to have located them and then be able to bring these children back to their parents. But for reasons best known to the government and the security forces, they seem not to be on top of this situation, and then it has become very, very embarrassing. If we know we don't have the technology for some of these things, there is nothing stopping us from soliciting the assistance of some other countries of the world to really help us to find this girl. But my worries is this, that especially from the report that we got from one of those who are very close to the Boko Haram people, they have said that out of the Dapchi, that is probably only one that is still alive today, that most of the other ones, besides those that have been released, that most of the other ones that we thought are still in captivity, that most of them have either been killed in bombing raids by the Nigerian army or in different attacks.
The Dapchi girls or the Chibok girls?
I mean the Chibok girls have either been killed in air raids or military attacks or one form of assault or the other. Some are said have been beaten by snake in the process of transferring them from one place to the other. Some have also died of natural causes. Some even of dehydration through walking around in the arid deserts of the north. For Shaibu Leah, who is from Dapchi and all that, for her, I should want to say that there is no reason or justification or excuse whatsoever why we should not have re-entered into negotiation.
Do you
for this
think,
lady to have been
you know, in celebrating Democracy Day, May 29, and the celebration of Children's Day, what would be your own message to the federal government? Of course, we've heard the senators or the Senate saying that the president should ensure the release of Leah and other Chibok girls. What do you say to this? Because I know that definitely it might just be a talk thing. And like they say, talk is cheap. Because if eventually the president does not do in line with their request or meet their request, what what is going to happen thereafter?
Yeah, honestly speaking, my message will be that it is not enough to just pass laws. We have found out that the Child Rights Act has been passed at the federal level by the National Assembly. We have also found a state like Lagos State has passed the Child Rights Act. But are these laws being obeyed? Are they being respected? Are they being enforced? You have shown some clips today of children below the age of 10 who are hawking pawpaw and all sorts of groceries that are not worth 500 naira, even after if they are able to sell some of these groceries. And imagine the kind of risk that these children are exposed to, not just in terms of road accident, not just in terms of kidnapping, not just in terms of defilement, but not just in terms of even being trafficked or stolen and sold either into slavery or into some women who don't have children and who might want to buy them as articles of merchandise. So the government, even ritualists who will use these children for one form of ritual or the other. So we want to implore the government at both the federal level and the state level to really begin to enforce the child rights law or act as it may be. Say for example, Lagos State, for example, he said that there shall be compulsory universal basic education for children. But you still find a lot of children around the Lagos State who are not going to school. What is the government doing about this? The government has said compulsory universal basic education. If you find a parent that is not exposing or sending their children to school to enjoy this so-called compulsory universal basic education that the law says that the Lagos State should provide for children within the Lagos State environment, what is the Lagos State doing in enforcing the law? So we must insist that this law should be enforced. And then the second recommendation or my appeal to the government at the state level, federal level, and then the local government level will be that, especially the states in the north that have refused to domesticate or to pass the Child Rights Act into law, either because of one religious consideration or because of one primordial cultural values or the other, they should, for God's sake, pass the Child Rights Act into law. Because you'll find out, take the average northern allies who are governors or people in the House of Assembly in the north, how many of them have you find who marry out their own daughter to men when they are below the age of 18? You see Ganduze's daughter married recently, Ajumabi's daughter.
So they have better enlightenment.
Of course. They know it is not good. If they know it is not good for their own child, female child, to be married out to men when they are below the age of 18, why are they now finding it difficult to really enforce the law that says no child that's below the age of 18 is married out until they attain the age of majority? They are in the position to really go to their respective House Assembly and for the governor to ensure that these laws are domesticated in their respective place. But because of their own personal, this thing, they don't want to domesticate this law.
Right.
They would rather take adolescents as wives when they will not do the same for their own daughter.
For their own pleasure.
So,
all right, many things.
Because of this,
time is not on our side, so we have to draw the cutting here in Super Eye. Well, I want to say many things for obliging us.
Thanks
we
for
hope
having
we'll
me.
call you again. You will be here again.
Of course, I always endeavor to be here.
Well, for my viewers, you've heard it. We are discussing about the rights of the Nigerian child. Looking forward to the Children's Day and its commemoration of Democracy Day, how government can work towards the passage of the Child Rights Act, I beg your pardon. So these are some of the things that we'll look into today. So we hope that parents will also begin to take proactive measure by ensuring that they orientate their children even from a year plus. Talk to your children and they will understand. Tell them to report any case of abuse or whatsoever in school, in the environment, and what have you. And the parents, you also have to know that the children are the leaders of tomorrow and they are your future. And because we know that they are going to be our representative out there later when we are old, more reason why you need to create time for your children. And I hope that everything is going to fall in place right. Well, many thanks for watching this week's edition. Join us again, same time, on your darling station Super Screen. I'm Adenike Ajiboye. Bye for now. This is Oshodi, one of the areas in Lagos State